The galaxy thought Earth was silent. For centuries, the great empires of the stars dismissed humanity as a backwater species, primitive, loud, chaotic, and destined to be consumed like so many others. The Zalthiri Dominion, with their fleets of living metal, spread their claws into every system they desired. The Orarak Horde, creatures of hunger, devoured civilizations whole. And the Veil Syndicate, merchants of despair, enslaved worlds until their suns burned out. But through it all, Earth stayed quiet. Oh, they fought their petty wars. They shouted across broadcasts. They even launched a few clumsy ships into the black. But to the galaxy, humans were nothing. Just another species waiting to be conquered. Until the day the message came. It began not with alien voices, but with one human, his voice carried on every channel, every frequency, every language. Morgan Freeman, the elder statesman of Earth, the voice of the council, spoke with calm gravity. To those who listen among the stars, know this. Humanity has not been idle. We have not been weak. We have been waiting. Waiting for the moment when the galaxy oversteps. Waiting for the day you come to take what is ours. You think we are prey. You think we are children. You are wrong. We have been holding back. And when we rise, it will not be mercy you find. It will be war. The galaxy laughed. Of course they laughed. Who was Earth to make such a claim? But then the fleets came. The Zalthiri sent their great motherships to the edge of Sol. The Orarak unleashed their swarms upon Mars. The Veil Syndicate infiltrated the lunar colonies. And that was when the mask fell. Blank. The first blow was struck above Mars. Their swarm ships, vast, organic monstrosities dripping with acid and hunger, descended upon the domed colonies. For hours, the humans stayed silent. Then, the domes went dark. When the swarm tore them open, expecting helpless prey, they found silence. Not bodies. Not chaos. Silence. And then, explosions. From beneath the soil of Mars rose black armored war machines, bristling with weapons that did not exist on any galactic record. Towers unfolded into cannons that ripped holes in space itself. A single blast reduced an Orarak Leviathan into ash. The swarm screamed. But it was too late. And leading the counterstrike, with a cold fire in her eyes, was Commander Scarlett Johansson, known among her troops as the Iron Widow. She stood at the bridge of the human dreadnought Silent Dawn, watching the enemy ride in confusion. They thought we were weak, she said, voice sharp as a blade. Now they'll learn what Earth kept hidden. Fire. The dreadnought's cannons lit up the void. Blank. On Earth itself, the people trembled, but they were not afraid. For this was the moment they had prepared for in secret. In the underground bunkers of Colorado, the military assembled. Standing at the front of the war room, his towering presence filling the space, was General Dwayne Johnson. His fists were scarred, his voice like thunder. He did not address the politicians. He addressed the soldiers. We've been patient. We've been underestimated. But tonight, the galaxy learns the truth. Humanity doesn't break. Humanity fights. And when we fight, we don't stop until every last enemy is ground into dust. Soldiers, welcome to the real war. The roar that followed shook the bunker walls. Far beyond, in the shadowed ruins of Titan's research stations, an even darker figure moved. Cloaked in black armor, silent, unseen. His name was whispered only in fear, Keanu Reeves, codename, Revenant. Leader of Earth's Black Ops Division. He and his operatives had been seeded across the galaxy for decades. Learning, watching, sabotaging in secret. Now, with a whisper, they struck. Syndicate command stations went dark. Zalthiri supply lines collapsed in fire. Revenant did not need speeches. He was death incarnate, a ghost with a human face. And the galaxy began to whisper a word they had never spoken before. Fear. But humanity's fury was not without cost. Jennifer Lawrence, once a simple colonist on Europa, watched as her family was consumed in the Orarak's first wave. She had screamed, begged, tried to run, but there was no escape. When the swarm left her broken dome, she stood alone in the wreckage. When the soldiers found her, she did not cry. She took up a rifle, her hands shaking, and whispered only. "Show me where they are. I want them to burn." From that day, she was no longer a survivor. She was a symbol. And across the networks, her image spread, a young woman who had lost everything, and yet still stood ready to fight. The people rallied. blank. And then, the galaxy's laughter ended. Because Earth's warning was not just a bluff. Humanity had been hiding weapons that bent the rules of physics, soldiers trained in silence, fleets cloaked in shadow. Every battle that followed was not a desperate defense, it was a massacre. The Orarak swarm fled from Mars. The Syndicate's fleets shattered at Jupiter. And the mighty Zalthiri flagship, once thought invincible, burned in Sol's orbit. As the fires lit the skies, Earth's Council broadcast one final message. This time, it was Samuel L. Jackson, Earth's defense minister, who spoke. His voice was fury, every word dripping with venom. You had your chance. We told you to leave us be. But you didn't listen. And now, it's too late. This is not survival. This is extermination. Earth warned the galaxy we were holding back. Now, it's war. And there will be no mercy. The galaxy trembled. For humanity had awoken. And what stirred in the darkness was not prey. It was the hunter. The galaxy's laughter may have ended, but whispers had only just begun. The Zalthiri, proud conquerors of 100 empires, met in secret councils across their crystalline palaces. Their leaders paced with nervous tendrils, debating whether the human threat was real, or a clever illusion. Some demanded immediate retribution. Others trembled, insisting humanity's ferocity was not a facade but a truth carved in blood. And in those chambers, one phrase spread like a plague. The Terrans were holding back. Blank. Above the scarred surface of Mars, the aftermath painted a picture no alien mind could understand. The swarm ships, once bloated monstrosities, were now twisted carcasses floating silently in orbit. Their flesh-metal bodies leaked strange fluids that froze into grotesque sculptures. From within the husks, faint screams still echoed, as though the ships themselves were alive and dying slowly. Scarlett Johansson's dreadnought Silent Dawn drifted among the wreckage. Her officers reported the victory as decisive, absolute. But her eyes narrowed at the strange readings. They'll come again, she said coldly. Stronger. Smarter. They'll send nightmares we've never seen. But nightmares die like anything else, if you burn them hot enough. Her crew exchanged uneasy glances. Johansson wasn't just a commander, she was becoming something more. To her soldiers, she was a war goddess. To her enemies, she was already a legend. Blank. On Earth, fear twisted into something unholy. The people did not merely rally, they transformed. Cities that once glowed with advertisements and commerce now blazed with war banners. The neon skylines of New York pulsed blood red at night. The freeways of Los Angeles became endless rivers of armored transports. Even the smallest towns raised militia banners, carrying the names of lost sons and daughters. And everywhere, screens broadcast Jennifer Lawrence's face. She was no longer just a survivor. She had become the martyr of Europa. Her silent gaze, her steady rifle, her blood-streaked cheeks, an image that burned into every heart. Songs were written in her name. Soldiers painted her likeness on their armor. The galaxy had its champions of fear, now humanity had its symbol of rage. Blank. In the blackened void between stars, Keanu Reeves, the Revenant, moved like a phantom. He no longer commanded platoons. He commanded shadows. His black ops did not simply kill. They made enemies disappear. Entire outposts found only walls covered in human symbols carved in blood. Syndicate traders awoke to find their fleets reduced to dust overnight, their captains' corpses suspended in zero-gravity chambers as warnings. No one ever saw Revenant strike. They only saw what he left behind. Whispers spread through alien navies. The humans do not fight battles. They haunt you. They stalk you. They do not conquer, they erase. And so, the terror deepened. Meanwhile, deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, General Dwayne Johnson oversaw humanity's greatest secret, the Vault. Few knew of its existence. Even fewer understood what it contained. It was not merely a weapons cache, it was a graveyard of failed experiments, horrors humanity had locked away even from itself. Machines that learned too much. Viruses that devoured flesh faster than fire. Engines that bent gravity until men collapsed screaming. Now, Johnson stood at the threshold. His hand hovered over the biometric seal, his jaw tight. His advisors whispered against it, too dangerous, too unpredictable. But Johnson's voice silenced them all. If the galaxy thinks we're holding back, let's show them how right they are. The doors rumbled open, What emerged was not human. Not entirely. But it was loyal. And it hungered for war. Blank, underscore, blank. Then came the broadcast. Not from Earth, but from the enemies. The Zalthiri Dominion, humiliated at Mars, sent their high warlord to deliver a declaration across the stars. His voice screeched across every channel, promising vengeance, swearing to burn Earth's oceans to steam and scatter their bones as trophies. Yet, when the broadcast reached Earth, people only laughed. They laughed because Samuel L. Jackson's voice thundered back on every screen, drowning the aliens' words mid-sentence. You want vengeance. You think your threats scare us. Boy, you're standing on the edge of extinction, and you don't even know it. We told you, Earth was holding back. You didn't believe us. Now, we're gonna drag you down into the dark and show you what real war looks like. No mercy. No surrender. Only hell. His words were not just a speech. They were a curse. And as the echoes reached alien ears, panic spread. Because the galaxy realized something far worse than humanity's strength. They realized humanity enjoyed the war. The galaxy had always known war. But never like this. When the Orarak horde descended on worlds, they consumed. When the Veil Syndicate conquered, they enslaved. Even the Dominion, with all their arrogance, conquered with ritual precision. But humanity's war was different. It was not conquest. It was not survival. It was punishment. Blank, underscore, blank. The first counterstrike fell upon Chiro's IV, a jewel world under Dominion control. Its skies were painted with lavender storms, its cities woven from glass and light. For centuries, it had stood as proof of the Dominion's superiority. Now, the people of Chiro's IV looked up and saw nightmares. Human dreadnoughts, black as obsidian, tore through the upper atmosphere. Their cannons didn't simply fire plasma, they bent the sky. Lightning split in unnatural patterns. Buildings buckled before a single shot fell. From orbit, Commander Scarlett Johansson led the assault aboard Silent Dawn. Her voice was sharp, clinical, void of hesitation. Target their power grids. Leave their palaces intact. I want their leaders alive long enough to see everything else burn. And so it was done. The cities went dark. The Dominion's crystal palaces stood like skeletons against firelit skies. And into that silence marched Earth's soldiers. They did not cheer. They did not cry. They moved like machines of vengeance. Every shot was precise. Every strike a message. The Dominion surrendered within hours. But surrender was not enough. Scarlet gave the order, occupy, strip, erase. Chiro's IV was not a victory. It was a warning. Blank, underscore, blank. Across the void, General Dwayne Johnson directed Earth's fleet like a conductor of chaos. Reports came in from every front. Mars secured, Jupiter ringed with defensive platforms, Titan turned into a fortress. But Johnson was not satisfied. He stood before his soldiers, men and women clad in exoskeletons, faces hard with resolve. His presence alone silenced 1,000 voices. The galaxy thought they could chain us. Now, we are the chain. And we will wrap it around their throats until they beg for silence. But hear me, there will be no silence. Not until every Dominion ship, every Syndicate worm, every Orarak beast is ashes. Humanity doesn't just fight wars. Humanity ends them. The soldiers roared, not with joy, but with hunger. For war was no longer survival. It was justice. Blank, underscore, blank. But war has many faces. While fleets shattered planets, Keanu Reeves, the Revenant, struck in shadows. His Black Ops infiltrated Dominion strongholds, appearing in the middle of councils, in bedrooms, in temples. No one ever saw them enter. Only screams and bloodstains remained. In one infamous strike, a Dominion admiral awoke aboard his flagship to find his bridge crew hanging upside down from the ceiling, their throats cut in silence. The admiral himself vanished without trace, replaced by a single human symbol carved into the command chair, a hand gripping a burning star. The galaxy began to whisper that the humans were not fighting alone. That perhaps something darker, older, walked with them. Revenant never denied it. His silence was enough. Blank, underscore, blank. On Europa, the ruins still smoldered. Yet in those ruins, Jennifer Lawrence, the martyr of Europa, trained survivors herself. She no longer trembled when she picked up a rifle. Her voice carried to civilians and soldiers alike, calm and cold. They thought we were weak. They took everything I had. But they forgot one thing. A human who's lost everything has nothing left to fear. And nothing left to lose. Her words spread faster than fire. Entire colonies began raising martyr battalions, soldiers who painted their faces in ash and swore never to retreat, never to forgive. They followed her into battle chanting one word: vengeance. Even Scarlett Johansson, far above in her dreadnought, admitted privately, "Jennifer Lawrence scares me, and I'm glad she's on our side." Blank, underscore, blank. The aliens tried to resist. They tried to rally. The Syndicate gathered their largest fleet in 2 centuries near the Vayner Rift, 100 warships, bristling with weapons, ready to crush humanity's advance. Humanity did not send a fleet. Humanity sent one ship, the Silent Dawn. The battle lasted less than 30 minutes. Scarlett Johansson stood on her bridge, expression carved from stone, as her dreadnought unleashed weapons the galaxy had never seen. Cannons that split Syndicate shields like paper. Torpedoes that warped time itself, detonating seconds before they hit their targets. By the end, the rift was a graveyard of Syndicate ships, their fragments glowing in the void like dying stars. News of the slaughter spread across the galaxy within hours. And with it, the truth: humanity's strength was not in numbers. It was in the abyss they had carried inside for centuries. Blank, underscore, blank. But horror grew not just for the galaxy. It grew for humanity itself. For in the depths of the vault, the experiments unleashed by Johnson began to spread. Bio-weapons that devoured Aurorak beasts now consumed too quickly, sometimes turning battlefields into wastelands unfit for life. Soldiers equipped with neural exosuits began showing signs of changes. Their eyes glowed faintly in the dark. Their voices carried unnatural echoes. Even the Council began to whisper. Had humanity unleashed not just weapons, but monsters? Only Morgan Freeman's voice kept the world steady. His broadcasts reminded the people of Earth why they fought, why they bled. His calm tone smoothed the terror that grew in every heart. The galaxy brought this war to our doorstep. And though the shadows may frighten us, remember this: the shadows belong to humanity now. We were patient. We were silent. But silence does not mean weakness. It means readiness. And now, we are ready. Blank, underscore, blank. The Aurorak horde, enraged by their defeat on Mars, unleashed their greatest monstrosity. A leviathan so vast it blotted out the stars, its body covered in screaming mouths, its core burning with black fire. They sent it toward Earth itself, confident no weapon could stop it. But when it reached orbit, it found Earth waiting. Not with ships, not with fleets, but with something else. A single weapon, buried beneath the crust of the planet, awakened. And when it fired, the Leviathan's screams were heard across the solar system, before it was torn apart into nothing but ash. The galaxy watched in silence. Because they realized Earth had not even begun to show its full power. Blank, underscore, blank. The war had only just started. And already, the galaxy trembled. But as humanity marched forward, something darker stirred in their shadows. For war awakens not just strength, but hunger. And some whispered that the humans were no longer fighting for survival at all. They were fighting for dominance. The Dominion's response was swift, yet fatally miscalculated. They gathered their greatest generals at the moon world of Charon, a fortress carved into obsidian cliffs, its skies bristling with orbital defenses. Here, they would plan the destruction of Earth. But the humans already knew. On the second night of the Dominion War Council, the lights of Charon flickered and died. Generals shouted in alarm, ordering their guards to secure the halls. Then came the screams. One by one, the Dominion leaders fell silent, throats slit in darkness, bodies arranged in grotesque patterns on the obsidian floors. When the survivors fled, they found a single human seated calmly in the war chamber. Keanu Reeves, Revenant. He said nothing. He only raised his blood-stained hand and whispered, "This is the future you made." By dawn, Charon's moon fortress was ash. Blank, underscore, blank. Elsewhere, Earth's victories began to blur into something darker. In the colonies, survivors no longer called themselves civilians. They took up arms, carving sigils into their armor: circles of fire, wings of bone, the burning star. Children were drilled in combat before they could even write their names. Jennifer Lawrence, once fragile in her grief, now commanded her own battalions. She led from the front, rifle always in hand. Her soldiers called her the Martyr General, a title she never accepted but never refused. Her enemies, however, called her something else, the Pale Flame. Because wherever she walked, cities burned. Blank, underscore, blank. The galaxy's fear reached its peak when the Veil Syndicate made a desperate move. They dispatched assassins, creatures spliced from dozens of species, designed for one purpose, to infiltrate Earth's high command and sever its leadership. The assassins breached the Colorado Vault, moving through shadows, cutting through guards. They thought themselves unstoppable, until the doors closed behind them. Standing in the dim red glow of the vault was General Dwayne Johnson himself. His armor bore scars from 100 battles, his fists clenched like hammers. He did not draw a weapon. He did not need to. The assassins rushed him. Minutes later, the floor was littered with their broken bodies, and Johnson stood untouched. He looked into the security cameras and spoke, his voice reaching every soldier on Earth. "They're trying to cut off the head of the snake. But they forgot something: humanity doesn't have a head. Humanity has a heart. And it beats in every one of you. And that heart will never stop." The soldiers cheered until their throats bled. Blank, underscore, blank. But even as victories piled, whispers of unease grew louder. Reports came in of soldiers who did not sleep anymore. Of captains who heard voices in the static between radio calls. Of shadows moving in empty corridors, whispering names that hadn't been spoken in centuries. Scarlett Johansson herself admitted to hearing them. Late at night, on the bridge of the Silent Dawn, she claimed the stars themselves whispered in languages she did not know but somehow understood. Words that promised power. Words that promised dominion. And when she closed her eyes, she saw not the galaxy, but Earth, wrapped in fire. Blank, underscore, blank. The aliens believed humanity was fighting for survival. But now they began to understand a far worse truth. Humanity wasn't fighting to survive. Humanity was fighting to conquer. And once the galaxy was theirs, no one knew if anything could stop them. The Orarak horde had always prided themselves on fear. Their swarms descended on planets like locusts, leaving nothing but bone and ash. But now, when they attacked, they hesitated. Because something new hunted them. On the frontier world of Velos, the horde descended with 20,000 ships, certain the humans would break under such numbers. But when their claws tore open the skies, the humans did not run. They waited. From the forests below rose a storm unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Missiles that screamed like banshees. Artillery shells that bloomed into black fire. And then came the soldiers, black-armored, faceless, moving through smoke like shadows given flesh. The Orarak fought savagely. Yet for every human that fell, 3 more seemed to rise. Their weapons never faltered. Their movements never slowed. And above it all, a voice rang out across the comms. "Jennifer Lawrence. Do not stop. Do not retreat. Remember what they took from us. Remember who we are. Make them choke on the ashes of their own hunger." The humans obeyed. And the Orarak, for the first time in their history, fled the battlefield screaming. Blank, underscore, blank. But Velos was only the beginning. In orbit above Saturn, Scarlett Johansson tested humanity's newest weapon, the Oblivion Lance. It was not a cannon. It was not a bomb. It was a tear in reality itself. When the lance fired, the Dominion fleet arrayed against her simply vanished. No wreckage. No survivors. Just silence, as though they had been erased from existence entirely. Her officers stared in awe, some whispering prayers. But Johansson only turned away, her voice as cold as the void. "Prepare the lance for the next target. If the galaxy wants war, we will teach them the meaning of nothingness." Blank, underscore, blank. Back on Earth, Morgan Freeman continued to guide the people with his calm, steady words. Yet even his voice carried a shadow now. "My brothers and sisters, war changes us. It always has. But remember, this war is not one we chose. It is one that was brought to our doorstep. And though our hands are stained, do not forget why we fight. We fight not only for survival, but for justice. And justice is never merciful." His words soothed many. But not all. For among the younger generations, mercy was a word they no longer understood. Blank, underscore, blank. The Syndicate tried one final trick. They released a plague into the stars, nanomachines that infected machines and flesh alike, turning entire colonies into twisted statues of metal and bone. Entire fleets stalled, eaten alive from within. But when they unleashed it against Earth, something unexpected happened. The plague stopped. Not because Earth's defenses repelled it, but because the plague itself bent. It recognized something in humanity's genetic code, something ancient, something darker than itself. The nanites writhed, then rewove themselves into a new shape, weapons loyal not to the Syndicate but to Earth. The Syndicate screamed betrayal. The humans said nothing. But from that day forward, Earth's ships carried a new edge, one that pulsed with mechanical hunger. Blank. By the end of the second year of war, entire sectors of the galaxy had fallen silent. Alien civilizations that had once laughed at Earth now hid behind locked gates, their skies patrolled, their lights dimmed. And still, the humans came. Because this war was no longer about defense. It was about proving a truth that the galaxy could no longer deny. Humanity had been holding back. And now, they were done holding anything at all. The galaxy had thought itself vast, too wide for any one species to dominate. But in the third year of the war, whispers began to spread among the stars. Entire sectors once teeming with trade were now dark zones. Systems that had shone like jewels had become black scars in the void. And at the center of each scar, there was one word, whispered like a curse. Humans. The Galactic Council met in the crystalline spires of Taros Prime. The chamber, vast enough to house a small moon, buzzed with terror. The Aurorac, once arrogant, cowered in their shells. The Syndicate hid behind veils of shadow. Even the Dominion, masters of galactic fleets, spoke with trembling voices. If we do not unite, we will all perish, hissed Chancellor Yaler of the Dominion. Unite against what? Spat an Aurorac general. They are men, beasts of one world. We have crushed worlds for less. A hush fell as the holographic screen lit up. Morgan Freeman appeared, not as a guest, but as a warning. His calm voice filled the chamber. You speak of men as though we are still bound to Earth. But Earth was never our prison. It was our forge. You thought us fragile. You thought us slow. And yet here we stand, and here you tremble. Freeman leaned forward, his eyes cold. We warned you. Now you will reap the harvest of your arrogance. The transmission cut. Silence reigned in the council chamber. For the first time in their millennia of dominance, the galaxy's empires admitted fear. On the battlefield, fear turned into nightmare. In the asteroid belt of Daros, Keanu Reeves led his Black Ops Battalion, the Ghost Division, on a mission to sabotage the Dominion's shipyards. But sabotage was not the right word. When Reeves' soldiers emerged from the shadows, they moved like wraiths, their blades whispering through air. Ships were gutted from within, admirals vanished from their command chairs, and entire orbital foundries were dismantled in silence. A Dominion survivor, trembling and broken, later described it. They didn't fight like soldiers. They moved like death itself had chosen human faces. Reeves' eyes, I still see them in the dark. Meanwhile, Dwayne Johnson rallied Earth's armies on the blood-soaked plains of Calith Prime. His armor, scorched and battered, gleamed beneath the dying sun. With a voice that cut through artillery fire, he roared. They thought we'd kneel. They thought we'd break. But we are the storm, and the storm does not stop until every stone is washed clean. His soldiers surged forward, chanting his name. The Dominion's towering war machines faltered. Not because they lacked strength, but because for every machine that crushed a human line, those same humans crawled back up, broken and bleeding, and kept fighting. The Dominion realized then, humans did not fight for victory. They fought for vengeance. And vengeance had no end. Far across the void, Scarlett Johansson wielded the Oblivion Lance again. This time, against an entire fleet that had sworn to protect the colony world of Zeros. The fleet outnumbered her 5-1. They mocked her, certain that even humanity's weapons had limits. But when the lance fired, it carved a hole through the stars themselves. Ships vanished. Crews screamed into the void. And when silence returned, only Johansson's fleet remained. Her officers looked upon her not with loyalty, but with reverence and fear. For in her eyes, there was no joy, no satisfaction. Only the cold acceptance of what she had become, the executioner of stars. But horror reached its peak on the frontier colony of Tarsus. The Syndicate had unleashed a final gambit, a bioweapon designed to devour entire atmospheres, suffocating planets in black mist. The colony screamed for help. But when Earth's fleet arrived, they did not save the colonists. They changed them. Jennifer Lawrence stood at the heart of the black mist, her body wrapped in experimental armor alive with nanites. The colonists, choking and dying, reached for her. And she gave them a choice: die as victims, or rise as something new. They rose. When the mist cleared, the colony was no longer filled with civilians. It was filled with warriors, eyes glowing, bodies fused with living technology. The Syndicate's weapon had been stolen and remade into a tool of war. Jennifer's voice carried across the stars. You thought we were weak because we bled. But blood is just the beginning. From our wounds, we forge armies. The galaxy realized then that Earth's vengeance had no limits. Not flesh, not machine, not even the laws of nature itself. Blank. Back on Earth, Samuel L. Jackson, now Earth's defense minister, addressed humanity and the wider galaxy. His voice was a thunderclap, a sermon of rage. You brought this on yourselves. We warned you, to leave us be. But you couldn't. You just couldn't. Now, the harvest comes due. And we will reap every damn field of stars until your screams are the only language left in this galaxy. His words echoed across every intercepted channel. And the galaxy knew, they were no longer fighting a species. They were fighting a nightmare. The Council tried one last hope, an alliance of all empires. Hundreds of fleets, millions of soldiers, weapons drawn from ancient vaults thought too dangerous to use. They called it the Last Wall. The humans called it practice. For when the Last Wall met Earth's armada in the skies of Syracuse, the battle was not a clash. It was a slaughter. And at its center, humanity unleashed something new. Something worse than war. Right. The shattered remnants of the Last Wall drifted like broken teeth in the void. What should have been a decisive victory for the galaxy had become a massacre carved into the stars. Survivors whispered in disbelief that humanity's fleets had not even fought at full capacity. In the aftermath, rumors spread. Entire crews spoke of weapons they had not seen before, weapons that should not exist. Shadows in the dark of space that moved without engines. Ships that bled like living creatures. Soldiers that laughed even as plasma burned through their flesh. The galaxy began to wonder, were humans still just humans? Far from the battle, in the quarantined ruins of Tarsus, an Orarak scout team descended to salvage intelligence. What they found was not ruin. It was transformation. The colony pulsed with life, twisted, unholy life. Walls of black metal grew like bone. Streets whispered with voices that were not alive. And in the center of it all stood Jennifer Lawrence, her armor fused into her very skin, nanites flowing like liquid fire through her veins. When the scouts approached, she smiled. You should not have come here. They opened fire. Their weapons melted in their claws. The scouts screamed as their bodies were rewritten, bones snapping, flesh twisting, until they knelt before her, eyes glowing with the same light as hers. Word spread. Tarsus was no longer a colony. It was a cathedral of war, and Jennifer Lawrence was its living saint. Meanwhile, in the frozen rings of Vega Ix, Keanu Reeves led the Ghost Division on missions whispered as impossible. He walked through flames without burning, through vacuums without breath. His soldiers followed, bound to him not by loyalty, but by fear. Alien prisoners spoke of him in hushed voices. He doesn't kill. He collects. Every strike leaves them hollow. Every victim vanishes. Where did they go? No one knows, but sometimes, we hear them crying in the calm static. Rumors suggested Reeves' unit had unlocked a weapon older than the galaxy itself, a fragment of darkness that humans had bonded with. Dwayne Johnson pressed forward with Earth's armies on Calith Prime, but even his soldiers noticed something terrifying. Their general no longer seemed entirely human. His eyes burned brighter in battle. His strikes crushed Dominion war mechs as if his fists were hammers of gods. When he raised his arm, artillery fire bent toward his targets like fate itself obeyed him. And when he roared across the battlefield, the enemy heard not a man's voice, but something larger, something older. The Orarak began to whisper a new name for him. Breaker of Suns. Back on Earth, Scarlett Johansson grew colder with every firing of the Oblivion Lance. She no longer waited for orders from the Council. She was the order. Her admirals bowed to her without question. To disobey her was unthinkable, for the Lance did not just erase enemies. It erased traitors. Some said Johansson no longer slept. That her body no longer required rest, food, or air. That the weapon had reshaped her, made her its vessel. And as she stood upon her flagship, staring into the void, she whispered avow to the stars, "When this galaxy is ash, we will not stop. We will find the next. And the next. Until the universe knows silence. Blank, underscore, blank. The Galactic Council fractured. Some species begged for peace, offering tribute, servitude, even worship. Others dug deeper into forbidden sciences, desperate for any weapon that could halt humanity's march. But it was too late. Because Earth had become something more than a planet. It had become a myth. A terror older than time, reborn in flesh and iron. And as Morgan Freeman's voice echoed across intercepted transmissions once more, the galaxy listened in frozen silence. You believed we were small. You believed we were weak. But weakness is a mask, and masks are meant to be shed. The mask is gone. Now you see our face, and it is the face of judgment. The galaxy trembled. For in that moment, they realized they were no longer fighting a species. They were facing the awakening of something far worse. Right. The galaxy was breaking, not in silence, but in screams. Entire constellations flickered like dying candles as human fleets burned through them. Each victory was not simply a conquest, it was a message. The stars themselves became warnings, etched in fire. Blank, underscore, blank. On Taros Prime, the Galactic Council gathered for what might be the last time. Their spires, once crystalline, pure, symbols of peace, were blackened by orbital bombardments still echoing in the upper atmosphere. The chamber was filled with shadows, broken voices, and despair. A syndicate elder rasped, "We cannot defeat them. They are no longer men. They are hunger. They are wrath." Another voice, a trembling Aurorac noble, whispered, "Perhaps, we must beg them for mercy." But when the name humans was spoken, silence followed. Everyone knew mercy no longer existed. Blank, underscore, blank. And then came the broadcasts. Across every channel, every frequency, Earth's new voice thundered. Samuel L. Jackson appeared, his fury so raw it seemed to bend the signals themselves. "We warned you. You laughed. We warned you again. You struck us. Now you beg. Too late. This war doesn't end with your surrender, it ends when the stars forget your names." Whole empires shuddered at his words. And still, the slaughter continued. Blank, underscore, blank. Far from councils and speeches, the battlefield grew darker. On the ruined moon of Arathos, Keanu Reeves and his Ghost Division stepped into legend. Dominion Command had fortified the moon with weapons older than their recorded history, planet crackers, antimatter fields, sentient minds. None of it mattered. Reeves and his men passed through as though death itself opened doors for them. Prisoners claimed to hear whispers in the vacuum. Follow him, or be taken. And those who resisted, their shadows never returned with their bodies. Blank, underscore, blank. Elsewhere, Jennifer Lawrence's cathedral on Tarsus expanded beyond the planet itself. Living nanite ships grew like tumors in orbit, vessels pulsing with veins of black light. Armies of altered colonists, no longer men, no longer machine, poured forth, chanting her name. When alien fleets tried to contain her, they found their ships infected, their soldiers rewritten mid-battle. Even their planets began to change, as Jennifer's cathedral spread like a sickness across the stars. You feared extinction, her voice carried. But extinction is mercy. I offer transformation. Her words broke the morale of entire species. Some surrendered willingly, throwing down weapons and kneeling before her, begging to be changed. Blank, underscore, blank. At Calith Prime, Dwayne Johnson, the breaker of suns, had grown unrecognizable. His presence bent the battlefield. War mechs shattered beneath his fists, and Dominion commanders whispered that even their suns dimmed when he entered orbit. His soldiers no longer saw a general. They saw a god of vengeance made flesh. And the Aurorac began to pray, not to their deities, but to him. Blank, underscore, blank. Meanwhile, Scarlett Johansson's Oblivion Lance no longer fired single blasts. Her weapon had evolved, or perhaps she had. With a single command, entire systems blinked out, planets, fleets, moons, all erased in white fire. Her admirals never dared to look her in the eye. For to meet her gaze was to see the cold void staring back. Blank, underscore, blank. The galaxy cracked under the pressure. Empires tore themselves apart. Some species turned on each other, desperate to prove their loyalty to humanity. Others fled to the galactic rim, hiding in nebulae and dead zones, praying the humans would pass them by. But there was no escape. Because Earth had unleashed something deeper than war. They had awakened myth. Blank. And then came the final revelation. On the shattered remains of Serikos, where the last wall had fallen, the humans revealed their hidden weapon. Not ships, not soldiers, but Earth itself. From the void, the planet appeared, not as a fragile sphere of oceans and soil, but as a world reborn. Its crust bristled with weapons the galaxy had never dreamed of. Its core pulsed with energy older than stars. And its voice, yes, its voice, rang out across the cosmos. It was Morgan Freeman's voice, calm, terrible, and eternal. We told you Earth was our forge. But you never asked what we were forging. Now you see it. Now you face it. And when this galaxy burns, remember, it was you who lit the fire. The galaxy realized then, Earth was not just humanity's home. Earth itself had awakened. And there would be no mercy. The awakening of Earth was not the end. It was only the beginning. When the planet's crust split open and weapons of impossible design unfurled, the galaxy finally understood the scale of humanity's deception. Earth had not simply hidden its strength, it had incubated it. Every storm, every quake, every unexplored depth had been preparation. The planet had not been passive. It had been growing teeth. Blank. Fleets scrambled to retreat, but Earth's gravity bent more than space, it bent fate. Escape routes folded in on themselves, stars shifted from their rightful places, and wormholes collapsed as though the universe itself had chosen to cage its prey. From the void, a whisper rippled across every channel. Not human, not mechanical, but something older, something that carried the weight of oceans and mountains. You trespassed in our cradle. Now you will drown in it. Blank. In the skies above Vega Ix, the Ghost Division's legends grew darker. Keanu Reeves led his unit into battles that no longer resembled combat. Enemy fleets would engage, their guns blazing, but in the next instant the ships would simply be gone. No wreckage, no survivors, no screams, only silence. Rumors spread that Reeves' soldiers no longer had shadows. That their eyes reflected not starlight but something blacker than void. Even human commanders whispered behind closed doors, was Reeves still one of them, or had he become the weapon Earth intended all along? On Tarsus, Jennifer Lawrence stood upon her cathedral of nanite flesh and bone metal as it spread through the system like a living plague. Planets bent to her will, their skies cracking open, their populations kneeling in luminous submission. Armies that resisted found their corpses reanimated, marching under her banners as if loyalty itself had been rewritten. In intercepted transmissions, her voice rang clear. The galaxy thought death would stop us. But death is not an end. It is the raw material of forever. Dwayne Johnson's march across Caliph Prime ended with a sun shattering. Not through weapons, not through fleets, but through his own fury. Witnesses claimed his roar tore the heart from the star, leaving the system frozen and broken. Alien historians recorded the event, naming it the Sundering. Yet his soldiers followed him still, their chants shaking worlds. Some swore his figure had grown larger than life, his shadow spanning miles. The Breaker of Suns was no longer a title. It was a truth. Scarlett Johansson's Oblivion Lance drew the galaxy into silence. Where she pointed, existence ceased. She had begun to fire not at fleets or worlds, but at entire constellations, reducing maps to blankness. Star charts became riddles of absence, each void marked with only one word: humanity. Her admirals no longer called her commander. They called her the Empress of Silence. Back on Earth, Samuel L. Jackson orchestrated the madness. His broadcasts no longer sought to terrify, they sought to indoctrinate. Billions across alien worlds began to chant his words as scripture, reciting lines like hymns. Mercy is a lie. Justice is fire. The harvest is eternal. Some species, once proud, now sent their children willingly to Earth's armies, hoping servitude might spare them. But Jackson's decree was clear. There are no slaves in vengeance. Only soldiers. And then came the horror no one expected. Earth itself moved. The planet broke from its orbit, tearing free of its star as if gravity no longer held dominion. It drifted into the void, a world ship, a living weapon. Oceans boiled, skies bled fire, but the planet endured. Wherever Earth passed, suns faltered. Wormholes collapsed, and civilizations died without ever glimpsing the armies that followed. The galaxy looked upon this wandering apocalypse and whispered the name they had once mocked. Humans. But now the word was not spoken in disdain. It was spoken. The terror of Earth's awakening rippled far beyond the front lines. Civilizations that had never seen a human ship, species dwelling on the galactic rim, woke to find their skies burning. They had not declared war. They had not even known the conflict existed. Yet still, Earth came. Blank. On the dead world of Scythrak, refugees gathered in ancient catacombs, hoping the planet's barren husk would hide them. But when the skies split, they did not see fleets. They saw shadows, colossal silhouettes moving without engines, vessels shaped like nightmares. The survivors swore they heard voices from those shadows. Familiar voices. The voices of their own dead, calling them by name. When the ships opened fire, the refugees did not even scream. They simply walked forward, entranced, as if answering the call of their ancestors. In the ice seas of Drelith, Keanu Reeves led the Ghost Division into a fortress thought impregnable. What followed was not battle, it was disappearance. The fortress lights flickered, and when they returned, its defenders were gone. Not killed, not destroyed, gone. And on the comms, alien soldiers reported a final, chilling sound. The soft voice of Reeves himself, whispering. Don't fight it. You belong to us now. On Tarsus, Jennifer Lawrence's cathedral no longer consumed planets alone. Her influence reached into minds. Across the stars, alien children woke screaming with her name on their lips. Entire populations fell to madness, tearing themselves apart before a single human ship arrived. Her sermons spread through the galaxy like contagion. You will not remember what you were. You will not remember your gods. You will only remember me. And through me, you will remember humanity. Scholars called it psychic warfare. Soldiers called it damnation. Meanwhile, Dwayne Johnson shattered more than suns. Reports spoke of him walking across space itself, his steps igniting void fire. When fleets confronted him, their weapons curved away as though refusing to harm him. Dominion archives recorded a final log. We faced not a man, not even a god. We faced inevitability. And when Johnson raised his fist toward a system, its core collapsed. Stars died not with explosions, but with whimpers, snuffed out like candles before a storm. Scarlett Johansson drifted further into legend. Her Oblivion lance no longer needed her command. It responded to her thoughts, her will. Entire spiral arms of the galaxy dimmed, constellations erased in perfect silence. Her admirals whispered that she no longer fought for Earth, she fought for the void itself. And in her eyes burned something colder than vengeance, purpose. The Council, desperate, unleashed their final relic, an artificial sun, designed in ancient times to burn any enemy from existence. They called it the Dawnbreaker. But when they ignited it, the fire did not spread across Earth's fleets. It bent, twisted, and folded inward, drawn to Earth itself. The living planet devoured the fire, drank it like water, and shone brighter than before. Morgan Freeman's voice followed, calm and unshaken. Your light cannot burn us. We are the flame that taught stars to shine. Across the galaxy, the war had ceased to be war. It was a reshaping. Every battle left not ruins but transformations. Every fallen world became part of Earth's growing dominion. The galaxy no longer resisted, because resistance meant assimilation. Some fled beyond charted space. Others prayed for death that would never come. For humanity had learned how to strip even death of its meaning. And so the galaxy trembled as the truth sank in. This was not conquest. This was not vengeance. This was evolution, written in fire and shadow. And at its heart stood Earth, living, awake, and merciless, dragging the stars into its eternal night. The galaxy was no longer a map of nations and empires. It was a graveyard of memories, a canvas painted black with the shadow of Earth. Where once stars burned brightly, now there were scars, swaths of empty void where humanity had passed. blank. The last council gathered in a hidden station orbiting the shattered moon of Zothar. They were the remnants, leaders, priests, scientists, and warlords from dozens of fallen empires. Each of them bore the same haunted look, the hollow eyes of those who had witnessed the impossible. They had tried fleets, weapons, gods, and suns. Nothing worked. Humanity could not be resisted, only delayed. And still, they plotted one final act of defiance. Blank. They summoned a weapon older than their civilizations, something buried in the abyss before their kind had even learned to speak. A living engine, vast enough to swallow galaxies. The eternal maw. It was said to hunger for everything, worlds, stars, even time itself. They unleashed it not with hope, but with despair. If humanity could not be defeated, then everything must burn. Blank. The maw rose from the void, a horror beyond imagination. Planets withered at its passing. Time fractured around it. Even the screams of dying worlds could not escape its gravity. For a moment, the galaxy thought Earth would finally fall. But then Morgan Freeman's voice came across every channel, calm as ever. You bring hunger to us. We are the famine that taught hunger to starve. Blank. And Earth itself moved. Continents shifted, oceans boiled, the planet's very core ignited. The living world lifted itself from its orbit like a titan rising from a throne. Chains of light wrapped around it, forged from the will of billions united. The eternal maw struck, and Earth devoured it. The galaxy watched in silence as the oldest terror in existence was swallowed whole. When it ended, Earth shone brighter than ever, pulsing like a heart that beat for all humanity. Across the stars, the celebrity commanders made their final stands into myths. Scarlett Johansson burned through entire sectors, her fleet consumed with her, until she vanished in a blaze so bright it carved a permanent scar across the night sky. Some said she became the scar itself, a reminder written into the stars. Dwayne Johnson walked into a black hole with his armies at his back, and instead of being crushed, the hole collapsed into him. Legends whisper he still walks, carrying gravity itself in his chest. Keanu Reeves and his Ghost Division faded into the silence between galaxies, taking with them the last bastion of resistance. Rumors persist that his whispers still drift through the void, guiding Earth's future prey. Jennifer Lawrence ascended as the final prophet, her sermons now the hymns of entire worlds. Aliens sang her words as their own, forgetting who they once were. She was no longer merely human, she was belief incarnate. Samuel L. Jackson, Earth's last minister, declared one truth before the galaxy's final collapse. We warned you. We begged you. We held back. And now, you are us. When silence finally returned, there were no aliens, no empires, no gods. Only Earth, and those who had become its children. Humanity was no longer one species among many. Humanity was the galaxy. And in the endless dark beyond the stars, whispers stirred. Other galaxies had heard the screams. Other empires felt the ripple. They trembled, for they knew. When Earth had finished with this galaxy, it would not stop. Because Earth had awoken. And nothing in existence could put it back to sleep. Stars that once glimmered as beacons of hope now dimmed, one after another, not from destruction but from assimilation. Humanity's presence bled into the fabric of space itself, twisting constellations into patterns no alien mind could recognize. Maps became meaningless. Directions led nowhere. Every path bent back toward Earth. Across ruined colonies, survivors whispered of phantoms in human form. They would emerge from the mist of shattered atmospheres, faces familiar yet wrong. Some wore the likeness of loved ones long dead, others bore the terrible visages of Earth's champions. Resistance melted not under fire, but under the crushing certainty that there was no longer a difference between enemy and savior. Entire cultures chose madness over surrender. On the crystalline world of Avros, priests set their holy spires ablaze rather than hear Jennifer Lawrence's sermons echo through their minds. Yet even in death, their voices turned to hymns of Earth, their screams weaving seamlessly into the growing chorus. In the gas giant cities of Varn, fleets attempted suicide runs into their own suns. But the suns flickered, and instead of destruction, the fleets emerged reborn, metal reshaped, crews rewritten, bearing Earth's banners. The deeper terror was not in battle, but in silence. Keanu Reeves' Ghost Division no longer needed ships. They traveled in shadows. Black holes became gateways. Where light refused to shine, Reeves and his soldiers lingered. Alien scouts reported feeling eyes on them even in empty systems, their own reflections moving a fraction too late. Blank. And then came the horizon shift. The galaxy itself tilted. Physics bent. Gravity no longer belonged to nature, it belonged to Earth. Worlds that had once circled their suns obediently now drifted in spirals toward the living planet. Moons abandoned their masters. Even time's flow warped, accelerated when Earth willed, slowed when Earth hungered. Samuel L. Jackson's voice thundered across the void, carried not by transmission but by the heartbeat of reality itself. It's over. Not because you lost, but because we chose to end the game. Blank. The last council, shattered in body and soul, could only watch as their history, their gods, their very sense of self unraveled into Earth's dominion. It was no longer conquest. It was rewriting. And in the final stillness, as the last star fell dark, there remained one truth carved into the endless night. Humanity was not a story within the galaxy. Humanity had become the author. And the galaxy, its wars, its memories, its horrors, was nothing more than the opening chapter. In the farthest reaches, where no charts had ever dared to map, refugees tried to carve out sanctuaries. Hidden moons, hollowed asteroids, and drifting arc ships became their last hope. But hope was an illusion. Even there, the presence of Earth seeped through. Children were born with human eyes, voices that spoke in Earth's tongue despite their alien origins. Parents tried to deny it, but each generation bent closer to humanity's image. The change was not invasion, it was inheritance. Legends arose among the scattered survivors. They spoke of Dwayne Johnson's march through the abyss, his footfalls echoing in the fabric of spacetime. Some swore they felt tremors beneath their ships, even in the vacuum, as if the very void remembered his steps. Others claimed to see him in dreams, towering, unstoppable, not promising salvation but inevitability. Meanwhile, Scarlett Johansson's scar in the sky became more than a cosmic wound. It grew. Stretching across constellations, it pulsed with faint light like a heartbeat. Scholars called it a nebula, survivors called it a warning. Every cycle it brightened, and every cycle it swallowed more stars into its glow. The galaxy realized with dread that Johansson had not vanished, she was still fighting, her very being burning the heavens. Blank. On worlds where the resistance still clung to survival, the terror was subtler. Keanu Reeves' whispers filled every silence. Pilots swore they heard him guiding their hands, only to discover they were steering directly into human ambushes. Soldiers heard his voice promising escape, but every path ended at Earth's gates. Was Reeves alive, a specter, or had Earth simply given him the void as his weapon? None could say. Jennifer Lawrence's sermons spread farther than light. Across derelict stations and ruined cities, her words surfaced unbidden, etched into walls, spoken by mouths that didn't remember moving, sung in melodies carried by wind that no longer belonged to its world. Civilizations collapsed not because of destruction, but because their people believed. They believed Earth was the only truth, and belief was more binding than chains. And still, at the heart of everything, Earth pulsed. No longer a planet, no longer a homeworld, but an engine of dominion. Its oceans rolled with the power of stars. Its mountains burned with celestial fire. It did not conquer, it absorbed. And with every system consumed, its glow reached further, a second galaxy being born from the first. The whispers grew louder. Other galaxies had noticed. Distant civilizations felt the tremor of reality reshaping, like ripples across an endless ocean. They peered into the void and saw the faint glimmer of a new empire spreading across the stars. They asked the question their doomed predecessors had failed to ask: what happens when Earth finishes this galaxy? The silence that followed was worse than any answer. For silence meant Earth was already listening. The collapse of resistance did not arrive with one final battle but with a slow, crushing inevitability. Across broken constellations, alien fleets no longer gathered for war. They drifted aimlessly, their commanders too paralyzed by fear to issue orders. Soldiers refused to fire weapons, terrified that every shot would only feed Earth's hunger. Civilians huddled in silence, afraid to speak lest their words be stolen and turned into hymns for humanity's glory. Everywhere, the same realization took hold. Earth had not won by force, it had won by rewriting the rules of existence itself. Blank, underscore, blank. On the ruined cradle of the Turnic Empire, the once mighty capital world echoed with ghostly parades. Holograms of human warriors marched through streets lined with alien statues, reshaping them into monuments of Earth's heroes. The survivors who dared to watch felt their faces itch, their bodies ache, as if stone itself longed to become flesh and bone. Some resisted, but most bowed their heads. Submission no longer felt like defeat, it felt like gravity, inescapable, natural, ordained. In the desert wastes of the Kyre Dominion, Dwayne Johnson's legend grew into something far more than human. The stories claimed he carried not only the weight of collapsed stars but the memories of every soldier who had fallen under his gaze. To face him was to see your ancestors behind his eyes, their voices whispering that your struggle was meaningless. Those who encountered him on the battlefield did not flee. They knelt. Blank, underscore, blank. Scarlett Johansson's scar continued to grow, bleeding light into the void. It was no longer merely a wound, it was a new constellation, a banner stretching across the heavens. Navigators used it to chart their courses, though none dared to admit it aloud. They were following Earth's signal, surrendering even their directions to human dominion. For entire species, the scar became a compass, guiding them home to the inevitability of assimilation. Keanu Reeves' Ghost Division ensured there was no escape. Outposts thought to be hidden in the blackness between galaxies fell silent one by one. Their last transmissions were always the same, a whisper, calm, unyielding, sometimes spoken in the very voices of the doomed themselves. No ships were ever found. No survivors ever returned. The void simply claimed them, folding them into Reeves' eternal shadow. Blank, underscore, blank. Jennifer Lawrence's influence transformed into something greater than faith. Her sermons, carried on the winds of dead worlds, became prophecy. Entire civilizations gathered in ruined temples to recite her words as if they had always been theirs. Infants were born with her hymns on their lips, their first breaths spent praising Earth. Alien priests shattered their old icons, replacing them with visions of Lawrence carved from their own blood and bone. She had ceased to be human, she had become inevitability clothed in flesh. Blank, underscore, blank. The final blow was not the annihilation of armies or the collapse of empires. It was the realization that Earth no longer needed to fight. Worlds drifted willingly into its orbit. Populations erased themselves before Earth could touch them, convinced resistance was blasphemy. And still, the living planet pulsed, its oceans glittering with swallowed starlight, its skies roaring with the voices of billions unified into one will. Samuel L. Jackson's final proclamation echoed not through radios or transmissions, but through the very marrow of every living creature across the galaxy. You thought we were small. You thought we were weak. You thought we were merciful. We are none of those things. We are everything. And with those words, silence fell. Not the silence of peace, but of inevitability. Blank, underscore, blank. The galaxy was no longer diverse, no longer fractured, no longer free. It was human, every shadow, every echo, every breath bent to Earth's dominion. But far beyond, in the uncharted reaches of the cosmos, other galaxies stirred. Ancient civilizations looked toward the spreading glow of Earth's dominion with dread. They sent warnings, built fortresses, raised armies. And yet, deep down, they knew the truth. The question was no longer whether Earth would come. The question was when. And when it arrived, nothing, not gods, not monsters, not time itself, would be enough to stop it. The galaxy had been consumed. The universe had been warned. And Earth hungered still.